Hi, how are you, Dr. Price?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Sometimes I crack up laughing because it's not like I just wasn't talking to you on our previous meeting. But you know what? I'm always excited to see you. I'm always excited to hear new things. I'm really always excited to hear what's going on and what's up, Doc. So
Yeah, how many questions do we have today?
we have 4 questions and a
Okay.
scenario from our viewers. But I also wanted to talk to you because we also had a question that was sent directly to Dr. Price. It's regarding our understanding your leadership style training that we do with our clients often. We deep dive into your personality type using a Myers Briggs assessment. And it was asking, how do you remember how to communicate with people that are different than you? And so Dr. Price and I, we got a new tool, we got a new product that we would start selling, but we kind of want to talk people through how we utilize our little booklet.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that because this question came to me, was aware of this particular question. But typically, people send questions directly to info@livelyparadox.com or directly to Jocelyn, and then don't I don't know about it. But this particular document is a little flip chart, and I'm pulling up my personality and Jocelyn's ISFJ, right,
That
Jocelyn?
is correct.
And so sometimes when people take personality instruments, they're like, don't put me in a box. Um, I have lots of different things that make me who I am. And all those things are true. In fact, birth order, country of origin, if you were raised in a country versus the city, race, gender, sexual orientation, lots of things kind of teach us how to be. I regularly say to people that I learned something different going to a school in the city than my son learned going to a school in the suburbs about what is acceptable and how to be. And these things just kind of happen around us. And so Myers-Briggs is just one way to understand people better. And so just so you can kind of see how this tool works, I'm an ENTP and Jocelyn's an ISFJ. And so on one side for ISFJ, let's assume that I'm the one that's using this, it'll tell me what my strengths are and the obstacles that I can't always know that I have. And then it also tells me what her strengths are and what are some things that she might not understand and be aware of about herself. But on the other side, it'll tell me what she likes in a leadership relationship and what she wants from a relationship, but it also has what I like and what I give. So, as an example, when we're thinking about my personality, it says I ignore and disregard rules and procedures, and I don't like detailed routines. It says that I lack awareness of when people take my intellectual critique of their thinking, they take it personally. So, when I read that, what I know about myself is I think I have a high level of self-awareness, so I know this is true about myself. But that's not the beauty of personality instruments. It's important to know more about yourself, but the beauty of personality instruments are to know more about other people so you can be helpful. So some things that Jocelyn, based on her personality type, is not aware of about herself is that she has too much focus on the rules and sometimes is unwilling to take calculated risk. She also doesn't always speak up if she disagrees with others, even if she's sure that she's right. And so those things are things that I can't change about her, but she also can't change them about me. So if you can imagine, without being deliberate and intentional, the fact that I ignore rules and she focuses on rules, that could be a problem if we're not intentional and don't know that about each other. And then here I can tell, what does she like? She likes to focus on past experiences and she likes to apply past experiences to problem solving. And what does she want? She wants respect, me not to be too aggressive, and to know what my expectations are so she doesn't disappoint me. And that's very clearly laid out right here for me to be able to know how to work with her. But the same is true for every single personality type there is in Myers Briggs. I can go to one where somebody is more like me and it'll tell me what they like and what they want. And so I think this is a beautiful tool if you already understand your leadership style. And it's very affordable to use something like this if you know some basics around someone else so that you can adjust your style to be more effective with those people.
I think a beautiful example of just how we've used it, just as leaders. Um, Dr. Price is brilliant at getting things done last minute. Her best thoughts actually come at the ninth hour, where when clients are like, well, we just need the slide deck a week in advance. Well, I go ahead and put it on the calendar almost 2 weeks in advance. And I'm always pushing, right? I'm always pushing. Dr. Price, do you have the slide deck? You're like, they don't need it till next week. Why are you pushing me to get it to you earlier? And I had to understand how Dr. Price operates, and she understood how I was operating. But we actually use the tools of understanding our leadership style to help get to a middle ground for a solution. And I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and just so that I'm super clear about what that looks like, Jocelyn tells me the actual date she wants the deck. She doesn't tell me that she wants it Friday when really she wants it Wednesday. If she wants it Wednesday, tell me she wants it Wednesday, and I'm going to get it to her by Wednesday. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't tell me you want it Friday and think I'm going to get it to you Wednesday. That's just not how I operate. And so anyway, this is a good tool. The MBTI flip a type tip. So if you've done Myers-Briggs, even if you've done the online version, sometimes this is really helpful for people. So let's get to the questions that I don't know about.
That you don't know about. And
Yeah.
also, if you have any questions during our time with you today, please go ahead and leave them in the chat and we'll get to them today or on our next What's Up Doc. So as we get ready for the first one, I actually want to dive into one that was based off of your Filter Free Friday last week. And it says, Dear Dr. Price, I'm a high school teacher and I've been struggling with putting things into the right circles: concern, influence, and control. For example, I get overwhelmed when I see my students facing challenges at home that affect their behavior and academic performance. I know I can't change their home lives, but I find myself obsessing over how to fix situations that are clearly outside of my control. How can I refocus my energy on what I can influence without feeling like I'm failing them by not addressing the bigger picture?
Mm. I love teachers, and a part of the reason why I love teachers and educators is because you all have been expertly trained in the social emotional check-in. And too often, I think that we feel like we have to fix a situation when a decent understanding that we have heard their situation, we are aware of what they're going through, we recognize their challenges, and still call them to greatness. I'm going to tell you about a personal experience I've had. I hope that people won't take this in a spirit different than what I mean it. I am not a person who believes that people should just toughen up and just muscle through. That's not what I'm saying at all. But this is a beautiful example of a teacher kind of staying in their lane, but then also recognizing that my circumstances were very difficult. And if I was going to succeed, I had to do so despite the circumstances I was living in. My second grade teacher, Mr. Thomas, I went to Sanford B. Ladd at the time, was very well aware that I had many challenges getting to school every day. And he knew that I was bright and that I needed to be at school every day so I didn't have a loss of learning. Mr. Thomas asked me to ask my parents if I could catch the city bus to school and from home. Now, just if you're not in Kansas City, you might not be aware, but I lived nearer to the plaza. So we were talking about 3 mile, but 2 mile, 3 mile walk bus ride to and from school at 7. That's a lot to ask a child. And when I think about myself as an adult right now, my mind, the world is different right now for sure, but my mind goes, a 7-year-old can't do that. That's what I think. But I was a 7-year-old who did do that, and it was critically necessary for me to be able to get to where I am today. And it was not that I had to do it every day, but when someone could not pick me up, I had to be able to do it. And so if I could boil Mr. Thomas's help down to one thing, He could not control my family life, right? Worrying about my family life was not helpful. Thinking that I was not going to be successful because of my family life, not successful, all things he was concerned about. Influence, he could sit around with some other people to think about what the other possible options were. That could have been safety net services, depending on what else I had going on. But the thing he could control was having a conversation with me and with my parents about what we would be willing to do given the situation that we were in. And that's what he did. And I'm eternally grateful. And I think I would love to see what that looks like for you and your students, recognizing that, yes, they have horrible circumstances often that are generationally present and then also systemically probably created. And what does it look like to create safety net services, or at least aligning people to safety net services? That would be influence. But control is, how can you put together a plan with that student? And I don't, did they say what grade they teach?
They said they were just a high school teacher.
Okay, so high school, listen, there are lots of things that high school students are capable of. How do we create a plan together with the student for them to come up with what their next right step is going to be? Because for those of you who weren't on, didn't see my Filter Free Friday, I shared the fact that I'm concerned about lots of things, and I drew this massive circle. But there's a smaller circle of things that I can influence, and an even smaller circle of things that I can control. And we are happiest and most effective when we are sitting solidly in that circle of control. And that doesn't mean rugged individualism, though. That means that I can still get together with other people and we can work on things together in our circles of control. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. If not, feel free. You could always call and pick my brain, set an hour for me to help you directly with your specific issue if you need.
And just to clarify, Dr. Price, it's actually a plan for that individualized student, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. The next question that we have, it says, Dear Dr. Price, I recently addressed an employee's habit of missing deadlines during a team meeting, thinking it would encourage accountability. This is how I was always taught: address everyone. However, they've become withdrawn and the team's morale seems affected. Did I handle this wrong, and how can I repair the damage?
I love you, and you handled this incorrectly. When you are addressing individual behavior, always address the individual. When you are addressing a group, address the group. And when I say group, I don't mean 2 or 3 people out of 20. If you have 15 people out of 20 who what you're having to say impacts them, I think it's okay to do group coaching. But if we're talking to one person, what you likely did was embarrass them. And what happened to the rest of the team is probably that they now say to themselves, when is their turn to get embarrassed? That's probably what happened. And so when I think about what does it look like to be a good coach, always think celebrate in public, correct in private, where you best can. Now, I do sometimes violate this. If something happens in public and it is damaging to a group or a community or a person in public, I will address it publicly. But performance, absolutely not. Those are for one-on-one conversations in private, to allow people to save face where possible. And yeah, and if I were you, I would probably apologize in front of everybody. I would apologize for it in front of everybody. Tell everybody that you handled that incorrectly, and that going forward you're going to celebrate in public and correct in private, and you hope that you can rebuild the trust of the team. That's what I would do.
You know what, Dr. Price, I love your answer to that, because I see this a lot, and from my past career journey, I've been this employee, right? So, what are your suggestions for an employee to come to their manager or their boss regarding this? Like, what are some tips that you could give to have a conversation with your manager or your leader and say, is there a way that we can address certain things when I need to be corrected, or when individuals on the team that needs to be corrected, to do it in private?
Yeah, I'm a fan because what this is feedback, right? We're trying to give feedback about how something went, how that team meeting went. And there's a desired outcome that we have. And I think there's two ways to handle it. One is assuming that the person knows. And in this case, the leader does know that it didn't go well.
Mhm.
And so the feedback model that I use is from inside out development. And it's like, what worked? Where did we get stuck? If we could do that meeting again, what would you do differently? And if you were the employee, this leader is actually pretty self aware. They would know what went wrong. And then at the end of that, let's say they didn't or did, you would then offer up, here's what I think worked, here's where I got stuck, here's what I also think we need to do differently. And then now you have a conversation about the sameness or difference in the conversation you had. That works when you're dealing with somebody who's generally self-aware. Okay. And or maybe they're willing and they didn't even realize what happened. Like but every once in a while, you run into somebody who is not willing or self aware. And I recognize power structures and I believe in hierarchy as it relates to competence. Like, I feel like people with greater levels of competence should probably be at higher levels. But when we have hierarchies based on power, you have to be careful of what I'm about to tell you. Power dynamics are real.
Mhm.
And so if you know that your leader lacks emotional intelligence and basic leadership competence, keep that in mind and decide whether or not you want to do this next method I'm telling you. I would say that I prefer to be corrected in private. And I was embarrassed by what happened in the team meeting. And I'm curious to know, because I can't imagine that you would want to hurt my feelings in front of my team members. I want to know what it looks like from you because this is how it's showing up for me.
I
And
like
then let's have a conversation about, my how I perceive it and ultimately what my goal is, which is to be corrected in private. But you have to have a healthy culture for that second method to work. It's not gonna work if your leader's not willing or self-aware.
I like that. I really do. Thank you, Dr. Price. And this leads into a little bit of our second question regarding team projects. And it says,
Let
"Dear
me let me
Dr."
respond to Jermaine here. Jermaine, yes, you may ask questions in the comments and we'll get to them.
All right. So the next question says, "Dear Dr. Price, during a recent project, one of my team members suggested an idea that didn't align with my vision, and they did my in italicized. So I decided not to pursue it. Now they seem less motivated and disengaged. How can I encourage creativity and collaboration without compromising my vision?"
You gotta be clear. And I learned this the hard way. Not being clear about what decisions had already been made versus what decisions are up for discussion. And I think, Jocelyn, you might remember this. I was creating a train the trainer program. The name of the train the trainer program and the content was decided.
Hmm.
The only area where I was open to feedback was, types of exercises, font choices, but the title of the program and the actual meat of the content, I wasn't open to feedback about that. And I didn't share that with the team. And listen, the first meeting I show up, people are telling me that the name needs to change. They're telling me that the way I teach it needs to change, the basic content. And I remember being incredibly flustered because my vision, the parts of my vision that had been decided were not clear. And so I think you have to help people know in every single meeting. And we have a framework for this. If you want it, let us know. Send us an email at info@livelyparadox, and we're happy to send you the decision-making framework. But at every meeting, you need to say what things have already been decided, what things are up for discussion, and what role you want people to have. Because sometimes people think the meetings are brainstorming sessions when they're not brainstorming sessions. And what you did by not being clear is open yourself up for people to share their opinions. And this is especially true in today's environment because somebody will post something on social media. I cannot know anything about it. And they're asking me, what do I think? It's
Right.
like, Am I a stylist? No, but somebody will ask me, what do I think about somebody's wearing versus style? And they'll ask me on American Idol, what do I think, who should be the singer of choice? And I can't even sing. And so I even think about how people offer up suggestions about coaching choices and things of this nature. Man, listen, you have to let people know what their role is. Are they the decision maker? Are you consulting them? And if so, what are you consulting them on? Or are you just informing? You already have decided on your vision and they just need to execute. And if you can be clearer about that at the beginning of every meeting, everybody will be better for it.
Thank you, Dr. Price. It looks like Jermaine sent their question into the chat. If you want me to read that, I will.
Okay.
It says, I'm in Kansas City, and this is my first live with you. So excited. As a previous manager who is now in a different role, non-management, I am scheduled to have a meeting with my manager and their boss about my attendance. I know that this can lead to a swift downslope. How do I avoid the flight mode that I am in prior to the meeting?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm assuming that you do have an attendance problem, Jermaine, and I'm assuming that you know what the is that why you're already concerned about this? While we wait for her to respond to that, I think that'll be just helpful to me.
Okay. So, Jermaine, as you type that in, I'm going to follow up with another question, Dr. Price, and then we will recount Jermaine's as our final question since we have them on the live. And
Okay.
so, the last question that I have on my side is one of my top, dear Dr. Price, one of my top employees recently expressed a desire to move to another department to grow their career. While I want to support them, their skills are critical to my team's success, and I
Mm,
encourage them to stay. Am I being selfish, or is it fair to prioritize the needs of the team over their own ambitions?
mm. I think the answer is in your question. I think you're being selfish. Um, and I think it's important to acknowledge that you're being selfish about the needs of the team, and you want them to sacrifice for the needs of the team. Here's what I think you should consider: that you develop your people such that they always are ready to go on to better things, and that you have the confidence that you can backfill their position with someone equally as capable of learning and getting up to speed quickly. And then what you two can talk about is what is their willingness to help onboard the new person as they transition onto their new role. And you congratulate them and send them on about their merry way. This comes up often in what I call feeder roles. So people go into an organization, they work in the call center for 6 months, and then they move on to something else because they're not going to stay in the call center. Or people work third shift in a manufacturing plant, no desire to stay on third shift. They want to be in engineering on first, of course. And so it's just a feeder role. And leaders in those spaces have a difficult job. It requires a unique set of talents. It is about onboarding and building skill fast and often so that you become an expert in building skill,
Mm.
because people are going to leave you. And I hate this for us because I feel like I have that often too. And you are now in the people development business, not the people hoarding business. Okay. So I thank you for acknowledging that you are being selfish, and now you develop people to go on and progress in their wonderful careers. So we've got Jermaine. Jermaine is on FMLA. Thanks for giving us that additional detail. Which, when you're on family medical leave, then of course it's for illness or other people's illnesses. And what I know is legal is that when someone is on FMLA, that there should be a job for them when they return. But what I know is realistic is that oftentimes when people are on FMLA, the organization finds a way to push them out. It is one of the one thing that I don't like about how our need to run our corporations in the US, how it shows up. And so, Jermaine, I'm just letting you know that I share your sentiment that this is probably going to be a conversation about your attendance. And it's not going to be, probably not going to be positive. I want to assume positive intent, but that feels like, I don't know, spiritual malpractice to tell you to do that at this point. Here's there are two things that I like to do. One, I like to prepare, plan, and practice for the conversation. I want you to imagine what they're going to say and then be prepared with all your possible responses. So imagine, and I usually think of what's the worst thing they're going to say and what's my possible response. That way, then if anything else happens, then you're in a better space as it relates to the conversation. The second thing I'll say is that there's a hostage negotiator. His name is Chris Voss. He wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. And he leans into active listening better than anybody else I know. And so when they're talking to you, I want you to, before you respond, I want you to repeat back, almost parroting, but not in a disrespectful or condescending way. Repeat back what you heard and then check for understanding. I understand that you all are concerned about the amount of days that I've been out on illness. Is that correct? Just to make sure that you've heard them, and almost after every statement they make. And then have an idea of what your goal is going into the conversation. So it's negotiation. Perhaps there's some other options that are available to you. Perhaps there's some other roles that are available to you. You mentioned that you're in flight mode. You know, I got to tell you that one time I was on a performance improvement plan, and the reality is that performance improvement plans are a way to push people out of the organization. Now, legally, performance improvement plans are supposed to be exactly what they say, performance improvement plans. But because I'd been in HR long enough, I knew that in the 6 months that I had on the plan, I probably should be looking for another job based on the reality of what I had seen throughout HR forever. So I don't know that you need to avoid the flight mode. I don't know how bad your illness is, if this is something that you want to find a new job at this moment. But I do think you should be thinking about all of your options in case this is a conversation about attendance, because I don't know why anybody would be talking to you about attendance while you're on FMLA. You see? So, like, why are they talking to you at all while you're on FMLA? I'm assuming you're not out 100% of the time, maybe. But I don't think it's bad to prepare yourself for the conversation. And I call it prepare, plan, and practice. It's another tool I learned from Inside Out Development. The practice piece is go ahead and role play your discussion with someone else who does not trigger your flight responses prior to the meeting so you can be better prepared. Okay? Be better prepared. All right, you're working with abbreviated schedule. Okay, let us know how it goes. Feel free to send us a note. Let us know how it goes.
So, Dr. Price, you gave us a tremendous What's Up Doc today. And I like to just, if I had to put a theme on it, it's just awareness. And so I want to ask you a quick question and then we will sign off. What is one tool people could utilize that you have that would help them be more aware?
You know, I think feed forward. It's a Marshall Goldsmith tool where you think about something that you know is not quite working or that you know you need to improve on, and you go around and you ask. I like the number 50. You ask 50 people how you can improve in that area. While you're asking, you are not responding, you're not debating, you're just getting their best suggestions. And I like feed forward because what it does is it helps you see if there are themes around the way you're showing up. Now, I know you said my best, but I wish the second one is I wish people would stop balking at personality instruments. We are not as unique as we think we are. We're one in a million and we all could still use a little work, but there's basically 16 basic personality types, no matter which one you use. Working genius, the predictive index, DISC, Myers-Briggs, like take your pick, and there's 16 basic personalities. Look at yours and see where it says that you have these areas that you are unaware of, and recognize that that is true instead of debating it. Like, yeah, I'll never forget the time that someone's Myers-Briggs told them that they tend to be combative, and debate a lot. And in fact, I am that way. One of the first things they said was, I'm not combative and I don't debate and I don't debate a lot. I just think, it was like, you are acting exactly like what the paper says you are.
Mhm.
When someone tells me they don't believe in Myers-Briggs, I pretty much know they're an INFP. Like, there's some science to this thing. And while you don't have to take it all hook, line, and sinker, it's a good indication to tell us where we could stand to work on some things. But I must say, if we lack awareness around our leadership skills, just recognize that leaders are responsible for the work culture. If you feel like people are not accountable, we are creating cultures that lack accountability. If you feel like people are not attentive to results, we are creating a culture where people are not attentive to results. If people are bickering all the time, we have created a situation where trust is low and people are dissatisfied. And we as the leader have the power to shift that culture when we want to. And instead of looking outward, we need to look in.
Thank you, Dr. Price. Now, I will say this Lively Paradox and Dr. Price has something very unique. If you want to connect with Dr. Price, and she can solve your problem, your leadership problem, in a 30-minute session, if you go to drnicoleprice.com, there's two little gold stickers that you just click on there, and you can just schedule your meeting with her, and we will get this meeting going. But we look forward to our next one in December. I actually have those questions lined up too, so I really look forward to our December What's Up Doc, and we will see you all next time.
Take
Bye.
care now. Bye, y'all.